All right, so we've been working here. All our servers and endpoints. We've been putting them all on server.js, right? But certainly this these endpoints are just going to keep growing and growing as we want to expose more and more data and want to respond to all different types of requests coming from the client. So certainly this is going to become unwieldy, right? So let's break this up a little bit. Instead, we're going to move all these endpoints, we're going to move them to a separate file. So since these endpoints are playing the role of an HTTP controller, right, which is receiving, which is binding URL events that are coming from a client, is binding them to functions that are executing and retrieving data and whatnot. So let's move this all into a controller. So let's create here a directory called controllers. So new directory and call it controllers. And since this is manipulating and accessing data about quizzes, we'll call it the quizzes controller. So a new JavaScript, we'll call it quizzes controller.server.js. And in here, what we're going to do is that we're going to copy all of this code, right? I'm going to copy it out of here, and it's going to move it into my controllers here. Okay. Now we need to be able to access all this logic, right, from the server, right? We need to be able to notice that we don't have an instance of app, right? So we need to somehow pass an instance of the app in here, and also we need to link it so that it gets executed from here from the top level server. So what we're going to do is that we're going to wrap this code inside of a function, right? That is going to take as argument, right? It's going to be an anonymous function. It's going to be app, right? And it's going to include all this content here. Well, maybe not the quizzes, right? But we'll leave it there for a while for now. Now app is being declared as an argument for the function. So somebody needs to call this function, right? And we need to call it from this server.js, so that because we have the instance of the app here, we need to pass it down to that controller. So to do this, we're going to export this function so that we can call it outside of this file here. So the way we export things from in Angular and in Node is to use the module.exports and say equal. So module.export is a mechanism that allows to export functions, variables, any information, maps, whatever you want, right? Whatever you assign to module.exports becomes available from the outside, right, through the require mechanism. So, for instance, we can now grab the quiz controller or quizzes controller by using require, right, and then navigating down to that file that we want to import. Now, before we use a express here, right, and that looked for the content inside the node_modules. But instead, if you start with a // or .. or something that is a relative path, you can navigate your directory structure looking for exactly what you need. So for instance, we can navigate down to controllers and then in there into the quizzes controller. Right, so there it is. So that's the file. Notice that if I click on it, it navigates down to the correct file. Also notice that the .js at the end of the file is optional, right? It's understood that you're importing a JavaScript file or a JSON file, and it's now the quizzes controller is bound to whatever this is exporting. So since this is exporting a function, we can call this function. We can say quiz controller, right? We can pass to the function an instance of the app, right here. We can do that, and we can restart the server. So let's stop this and restart it, and hopefully this should work just the same. Yeah, it works exactly the same. There we go. Right, so it works the same. An alternative here is that usually this controller, we're not going to use it. We're not going to use this function for anything else other than calling app, right, and passing an instance to app. So we can abbreviate this, right? So since we're not using it anywhere else, we don't really need to bind it to anything, to a variable, and we can use this alternative syntax here. All right, so this syntax, notice that it's loading that function, So that returns the function, and then we are immediately calling it, passing an instance reference to the app function, right? Yeah, that's just an alternative.